Hey, what's up? This is 0456 here, and welcome back to day 82 of my 365-day challenge. In this video, I'll be talking about Avengers Endgame, and this is day 22 of Marvel Month. Now, this video is going to be quite a long video, because not only will I be explaining my story around Avengers Endgame, but I'll also be talking about, what happens in Avengers Endgame myself. So yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Here we are, the epic culmination that wraps up the entire Infinity Saga in an epic 3-hour movie. Me and my cousins, we were always a big fan of the MCU, but just like the MCU grew, so did our friend group. The more movies that came out, the more of us that would go see it. I remember watching Infinity War, and we were all left speechless by the movie because of how Thanos did, because of what Thanos did at the end of it. And we were even more anxious to see what would happen after effect. So what did we do? We would watch each of the trailers, sneak peeks, and clips from the movie before it even came out, and whatever we could from it. I remember whenever the second trailer came out vividly. I was about to give my final exam for one of my English classes, and I was very nervous because I waited till the last second to formulate what to do for it. Once I scrapped together a rough draft for what my speech was to become, I was semi-ready, but the nervousness was still there. That was until I saw the second trailer was out. I stopped what I was doing. I didn't care if the teacher was waiting for me. I watched the trailer. And the excitement that was built up took all of that nervousness away. But that isn't my favorite memory from this movie. My favorite memory is what me and my friends did. What was the best way to experience this movie for the first time? Well, what we did was we got as many friends and family together, and we went to go see it together. So we rented out a whole entire movie theater, and watched it ourselves. And I wish I could go back to that day to watch the movie for the first time, because it was just such a surreal experience, and having that friend group, I miss those days. But now I'm here to watch it again and to talk about it. I don't know how long this video is going to be because it's probably already pretty long, and I haven't even started talking about the movie, so it's going to be a longer video. And I don't care if you click on this video for 3 seconds and never watch it again. That's not why I'm doing this. But I'll get to that in a later video. For now, I hope you all enjoy. The movie begins with Clint Barton showing one of his daughters how to shoot an arrow. She shoots it perfectly in the center of the target, and he grabs the arrow from it as something weird happens. He turns around, and his whole entire family's gone, dusted. This is caused by the blip. The scene then cuts to the Marvel Studio logo, playing the first of many great songs from the movie, Dear Mr. Fantasy. The next scene shows Tony playing paper football with Nebula, showing her what good sportsmanship is all about. Nebula wins and is obviously shocked. We see that she has genuinely had fun for the first time in her life. Tony then gives a message to Pepper talking about them being stuck in space and about to die, wishing her the best of luck and all that jazz. And, telling people not to spread or show this off anywhere online. I'm underplaying the scene a lot, but I gotta get going with this video, so if the description for scenes are sparse, then oh well. All hope seems lost until Captain Marvel shows up. She rescues the two and takes them to Earth, where Steve, Natasha, Rocket, Thor, Bruce, Rhodey, and Pepper are extremely surprised to see the two. Well, the three. Tony and Steve bicker a bit, but Tony passes out, and the rest go to kill Thanos to attempt to bring everyone back. And then the title card for Avengers Endgame appears. They arrive to where Thanos took shelter. They then realize that he uses the stones to destroy the stones once they arrive at the planet. 5 years later happens. The universe is still trying to heal from the mass genocide that occurred, and we get a small scene with Steve and the Russo brothers having a therapy session, pretty much. We then are shown a scene where a rat, yes, a rat, gets Scott Lang unstuck from the quantum realm. Scott is very confused and then goes to seek out answers. He asks the kid what happened. The kid says nothing, of course. After looking around for a bit, he realizes that he's on a memorial, so he rushes to Cassie. But luckily, she's alive and they reunite. Natasha goes after Barton, who has gotten her new identity as Rowan, sorry, as Ronan. He goes after some criminals that survived and kills them. Steve comforts Natasha before she goes, and then Scott comes out of nowhere and talks to them about time travel being a possibility. So they go to Tony Stark for help. Tony, of course, is against the idea because we find out that he has a kid and doesn't want to risk losing her. Her name being Morgan. They leave it. They leave to give Tony some time to think on it. Later that night, Tony actually thinks on it, and as he is washing the dishes, he wipes off a picture of him and Peter Parker, reminiscing on the memories that they two had together. He goes through the possibility of time travel and actually being feasible, and he actually finds a way to do it. A cute scene where "I Love You 3000" comes from, and then he consults Pepper about it. They come to the conclusion that this might actually be the best course of action. They seek out the group seeks out to find another genius, and we are introduced to Professor Hulk. He's a bit skeptical at first, but then tries it. They struggle for a bit, turning Scott into an older, younger, and baby version of himself before luckily bringing him back to his normal self. Tony comes up knowing that they failed and makes amends with Steve, giving him the shield back. Hulk and Rocket then go to get Thor for help, and that's whenever we learn that Thor had been suffering through a deep depression after those 5 years. He gained a decent amount of weight and became an alcoholic. They convince him to come back after Natasha successfully gets Clint back, after a heated fight between him and some vigilantes. They all reunited, and they sent Clint to the past to try to test out, see if it actually works. It works, and they try to figure out when, and where to find the stones. They figure out that the three stones are in New York at the same time. The Soul Stone is, of course, on Vormir, and the Power Stone is on the planet when Quill gets it in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. The Reality Stone is extracted from Jane Foster in the past. Once they have a plan, they all go to the past. Tony, Steve, Bruce, and Scott go to New York to acquire the Time, Space, and Mind Stone. Rocket and Thor get the Reality Stone. Rhodey and Nebula go to get the Power Stone, and Natasha and Clint go to get the Soul Stone. Tony, Scott, Bruce, and Steve have some troubles getting the stones, like Loki from the past stealing the Space Stone, Steve fighting his past self and beats his past self, getting the Mind Stone, and Bruce trying to explain why they need the stone to the Sorcerer Supreme, and eventually gets the Time Stone. Thor has a therapy session as Rocket gets the Reality Stone. Before Thor and Rocket go back, Thor gets Mjolnir back. Rhodey and Nebula knock out past Quill to get the Power Stone, but before Nebula is able to go back to the present, she gets a splitting headache. Something in her machinery malfunctions. As past Thanos and Nebula compromise her. Nebula tries to warn Natasha and Clint as they travel back in the same time period, but before that happens, but as that happens, Nebula gets kidnapped by Thanos and Nebula. Tony and Steve go to 1970 to acquire the Time Stone, or not the Time Stone, the Space Stone. After a few issues that come up, they acquire the Space Stone and go back. Old Nebula takes new Nebula's band that lets her time travel and disguises herself as her future self. Natasha and Clint are in Vormir to get the Soul Stone and learn quickly that they have to sacrifice one of themselves to get it. So after a bit of fighting, Natasha bravely sacrifices herself so that Clint can get the stone. And then everyone comes back to the present. Everyone mourns Natasha's death, some more angry than others, but they find some resolution in it. They form a gauntlet to house the Infinity Stones out of Tony's nanotechnology. They discuss who should snap their fingers, and Hulk eventually volunteers, all the while old Nebula sends a ship that has Thanos and his army to the present. Hulk puts on the gauntlet, and after a lot of pain and struggling, he snaps his fingers. Once they are kind of sure they brought everyone back, they get blasted by Thanos' ship. As past Nebula successfully, gets Thanos and them back. Clint has the gauntlet and has to escape from the Chitauri. Thanos arrives on the surface and waits for Thor, Tony, and Steve to fight him. After the three struggle to fight him and get some of them, Tony gets knocked out, Steve gets knocked away, and Thor almost gets stabbed in the chest. But as he is getting stabbed in the chest, Mjolnir lifts off from the ground and goes to Steve's hand. making him worthy. Now, I will say, of course, whenever we all first saw it for the first time, like our minds were blown. Like we had no idea that that was going to happen. Um, Steve does a sick combo against Thanos, but eventually gets knocked away, and everybody's like, beat up on the ground, kind of like knocked out, like kind of dazed. Whenever we think all hope is lost, Cap faces the army alone. It all gets quiet as the portal scene, which is my favorite scene, happens. That I will say, the portal scene has inspired one of the things that happened in my book. Now I'm gonna kind of like rework it that way it's not exactly the same, but it is what inspired it. All the Avengers that got dusted reunite and fight off against Thanos' army. The music and tension build up to the point where Cap says the famous line, "Avengers assemble." The two armies charge at each other and clash, the biggest fight of the MCU underway. A bunch of smaller battles happen as the climate builds whenever Thanos destroys the last time machine available. He gets the gauntlet and almost snaps his fingers, but not before Captain Marvel pins him down. He uses the Power Stone to blow her away. Tony, with a last-ditch effort, takes on Thanos one last time. Thanos knocks him away and snaps his fingers. But nothing happens. Then we realize what happened. Tony got the stones from Thanos and did his famous line, "I am Iron Man," and snaps his fingers, successfully defeating Thanos. But this comes at a cost. The stones were too powerful as they say their final words to Tony, especially Pepper as he passes on. Small montage plays as the families are reunited, peace is brought to the world, and everything is back to semi-normalcy. All the while we hear a beautiful speech by Tony, ended by him saying, "I love you 3000" to Morgan. Then the funeral and memorial scene happens, sending off one of the world's, hell, even this world's greatest heroes. Everyone gets some sort of resolution. Thor goes with the Guardians of the Galaxy, Valkyrie is now the leader of Asgard, and Steve sends the stones to Mjolnir back to their rightful place in the timeline. But we see later that in the scene that Steve stayed in the past, sitting on a bench in the distance as an old man. Sam and Bucky go over to him to talk to Steve, and Steve dubs Sam as the new Captain America. Then, for the final scene of the movie, we see Steve dancing with Peggy after all this time. Dancing to It's Been a Long, Long Time. Then we see the culmination of 22 Marvel movies, 3 parts, and one final kiss scene with Steve and Peggy come to a conclusion. To top it all off, we see an epic end title card of the main 6 Avengers, each getting a small scene while their signatures pop up on the screen. And at the very last second, whenever the Marvel logo pops up, at the very last second of the movie, we hear the sound of Tony from the first Iron Man hammering away at his first suit. Alright, that's it for this video. I know I went on rambling a lot, and I apologize for that. And I am sorry that I am very behind on the videos. With that being said, I'm going to make the next few videos kind of like 4 videos in one. Talking about, like, this next video, I'll be talking about, like, normally I would be separating into 4 different videos, but in order for me to catch up, I have to put the next 4 movies in one video. So the next video would be episode 83 through 86. And then after that, I will be doing 3 different, as you can see up here, I'll be doing 3 different tier lists over the shows, the movies, and the characters. And then I'll be talking about another video. The last 2 videos are going to be sort of like special videos. But you'll find out what happens in the next few videos. But I hope you all have a wonderful night, and I will see y'all in the next video. See ya.